Hi guys, it's Shar. Welcome back to my channel, Crafting Up a Storm. Today is the 5 Under 5 challenge, and this month's theme is dupes. So I have found some inspiration projects that I recreated for a very low price. All of them under $5. One of them was only $1.25. So hopefully these projects inspire you to recreate some of your crafts at a low cost. I'll tell you more about that collaboration video and the hosts during today's video. Let's get crafting. I found all my inspiration today on Wayfair, and I know Wayfair is a discount website. However, this fall farmhouse was $23.99 and I was able to recreate it for $4.75. Let's see how I did. For this project, I used 2 of the plank signs for the tabletop signs from Dollar Tree. I needed more than one and I had a piece left over from another project. I cut them down into 3 sizes. I started, the longest one's about 9 inches, the next one's about 8 inches, and the top one's about 7 inches. I painted them completely with the ivory chalk paint. No, I think I did use plaster on this one, plaster chalk paint. And then I decided to use popsicle sticks to make a frame. I cut a 45-degree angle in the corners and I pieced them all together. I just kept making cutting lengths until I had a frame around each of these. You don't have to do this. You can simply tape off the middle, paint your frame, and make it a faux frame. It doesn't have to actually be a frame, but I chose to use the popsicle sticks. Once I had them glued down, I did want to go in with filler and file it down, and I did a very quick job. I could have taken a little bit more time on it. However, I was kind of hurrying. So I did go in with the chalk paint and celery and paint the edge of each of the frames, the frame and the edges of each of these in that celery color. Now I'm going to use the rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree, and I had already used a lot of this pack, and I wanted the pumpkins to be about the same size. So you can see this kind of bluish one. I'm going to cut away the second pumpkin on it. So I have a single pumpkin, and then I have an orange pumpkin, and then the next pumpkin I used had a flower on it, and I just kind of cut that away. So these are really easy to use how you need it. And there may be enough included in that rub-on transfer. I just had used a lot of the pumpkins. I also went on my Cricut and printed out Fall Farmhouse. I believe I used Comic Sans. I mean, just a very simple font in kind of a gray, a blue-gray vinyl. And I added that, and that's it for this particular inspiration. Let me know what you guys think of how that came out. As a reminder, here's the Wayfair inspiration, and this is my version. Let me know what you guys think of this one. This is the 5 Under $5 DIY challenge playlist, and it is every month on the 5th. Hosted by Missi from Crafty Cove DIY and Emily from Farm Charm Chic. This month's guest host is Christine from DIY Craftaholic. And these are some talented ladies. You must go check out their channels and get tons and tons of wonderful ideas. Also, click on the playlist. I'll have the link in my description, and you can see everyone's projects all under $5. Wayfair's inspiration was 2 pumpkins for $60.99. Mine cost about $3 to make, though I changed things up just a little bit this time. Okay, for this project, I had a pumpkin decor sign from Dollar Tree. And I'm going to use the back side and snip off that little twine hanger. I'm going to paint it with the Waverly chalk paint in plaster. I coat it down with a couple coats to make sure it's good and covered. And now I'm going to use some washi tape. That way I can kind of get some different size stripes. I will also go over with you some of the mistakes that I made and how I corrected or adjusted and carried forward from them. I laid my tape down, and again, I didn't measure or make sure they were exact and straight. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. And you can tell once I'm done, they were a little bit wonky, which is fine. It's homemade. So I laid my washi tape down. Now, I didn't have painter's tape, and it would have been better to use a wider painter's tape on the outside edges so that I don't go over and get the striped paint where I don't want it to be. And I'm telling you this, yes, because that was one of the mistakes I had, but I was out of painter's tape. I could have put at least a double layer of washi down, and I didn't. Now, here's my next mistake. I went ahead and taped off the top to do my stripes at the same time, and I should have done them separately, and I'll show you why, but that's okay. I also just kind of, you'll notice the two paints up in the corner. I used a coral and added a little bit of red in to make it even a little bit more, lean toward the more red coral color. And I used that as my stripes. In fact, I believe coral is the name of the orangish one and just regular red. So I just mixed it up and did my stripes. You'll notice I went over the edge at the very top, and so I have kind of a smudge, which that's okay. I can go back over that with the chalk paint. And I'm pulling it off. The washi tape does pretty well as far as a clean line. But you will see when I pull off the next tape why I needed to do them separately. Of course, the tape blocked the lines going each way. No worries. I'm going to go over everything with the chalk paint to fill it in. And I didn't have to worry about it being covered because I'm going to go back and redo my stripes, and this time one at a time. So I'm going to do my stripes this way. Let that dry really well. Now, I did pull the tape off while it was still damp, but I did let those stripes dry really well and then do this side. And that gave me my crisscross. I also did those stripes intersecting at the top of the pumpkin rather than the bottom of the pumpkin, like on the inspiration piece. This pumpkin was a decoration from Dollar Tree, and it said, I believe it said grateful on it, and I used that grateful metal piece on another project. I'm covering the back of it with some brown paper just to make it nice and clean. And the inspiration piece had a simple checkered bow. I want more of a pop, so I did do several different burlap ribbon, and some of that beachy ribbon I've been obsessed with for fall, a checkered ribbon, and I twisted it all together with twine. And then I also added some raffia pieces to it as well for extra texture. I dovetailed the ends of those ribbons, and I also went around the stem with some twine. That wasn't on the inspiration, but I liked it. You'll also see that I printed out on my Cricut with some vinyl, Hello Pumpkin. The inspiration piece says Hi Pumpkin, but that hello was free on Design Space, and I liked it, so I said Hello Pumpkin. I drilled 2 large holes in the top because I wanted to use some of that nautical rope to hang it up with. I also used a window cling down at the bottom for decoration. It's just off of a window cling sheet from Dollar Tree. And I put that down and I went over the top of it with Mod Podge. I tied my nautical rope at the top and knotted it. And now I'm going to glue down my scrappy bow. And once I have that glued down, I do pop on the very top of it a small orange checkered bow that I had. And that was it. So a little different than the inspiration, but let me know what you guys think. As a reminder, this is the Wayfair inspiration, and here is my pumpkin. Wouldn't you know it, this next one wasn't available on Wayfair any longer once I was putting my video together. However, it was on Wayfair. You could see it in the next picture, and then it was on price list for $54. I made it for $1.25, and it's one of my favorites. I started out with this silver shelf decoration from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cover it completely in chalk paint cashew. That gave me a good base, and I will say this one went on a journey of layers. So I started with dry brushing some mineral on the bottom of the acorn. And next I'm going to go in with a dry brush layer of truffle. This acorn is probably quite a bit smaller than the inspiration piece online. However, it was just so cute, and I love the way it ended up coming out. And I think the colors ended up looking very similar to the inspiration piece, even if it is quite a bit smaller. I just kept going over everything, and now I want to tackle that top of the acorn with a lot of that truffle. I want to make the top of it pretty dark and pretty brown. So I'm going to go in pretty heavy with that truffle paint on the top. And since the dry brush didn't quite get me where I needed, I did go back in with a sponge and add even more, and I could get more into those crevices. I wanted the top to be much more brown. I did leave some of that cashew color in some of the crevices. This is just going to be a ton of different layers, and I just kept going till I got it where I wanted. Now I'm going in with some of the hazelnut chalk paint. And that's adding a nice kind of orangey brown to the mix. And I'm going over the top with that as well too. Now I'm going to go back in with some of that mineral and lighten it up a little bit. And then I go back in with some of the truffle paint. And now I think I'm going to add some of the antique wax along the top as well too. That will darken that up a bit as well. And the top ended up just not being quite dark. I wanted it really dark in some places, so I did go in with a little bit of black chalk paint. And it goes on very bright while it's wet, but I will say it does dry and kind of blend in a little bit better with those browns. And I kind of rubbed it off as I went with the clean side of the sponge, and I just kind of added that for some nice dimension on the top part of the acorn. And there it is. I really like how it turned out. Just as a reminder, here's the Wayfair inspiration picture. And here is mine. Let me know what you guys think, how this turned out. This next inspiration was on Wayfair for $27.99, and I was able to recreate very close to these cute little trio of pumpkins for about $3. I started with one of those long shelf boards signs from Dollar Tree, and the two smaller pumpkins are 2.5 inches tall, and the largest pumpkin is 3.5 inches. So I did a mark from one end at 2.5, and then I did a mark at 5 inches, and then a mark at 8.5 inches. And I just cut that out with my miter box. Very easy to cut, and I sanded them, the rough edges. Now I'm going to go in with some Harvest Pumpkin acrylic paint, and I'm going to paint the edges of all of those. And add some Mod Podge to the front. I went through my stash of scrapbook paper, and I found just some different plaid that I thought would look cute on these. Now I'm going to put the scrapbook paper on both sides of each of my pumpkins. I don't know if they're decorated on both sides on the inspiration piece, but mine are. I just went through and Mod Podged the paper down and kind of trimmed around it loosely with scissors, and I did that to all sides. Once I'm done and all the paper's on, I do go in and cut the sides very close and kind of give them a sand as well to distress the edges just a little bit. But I don't want to distress these too much. For my stems, I just went and cut a twig and cut it down into several pieces all about the same length, and I added the pieces together to make a thicker stem for my pumpkin, and that's what I used. And just kind of glued 3 or 4 pieces together. For the little tags on them, I went in with my favorite rub-on transfer and added that to some popsicle sticks. And for the stem, the curly Q, I used these ornament hangers. I did not have any gold for the leaves like the inspiration piece, but I just used regular pieces of floral leaf and I cut them down to be smaller. I made probably 2 or 3 leaves out of each one. I used a little bit darker green for my taller leaves. Now I added twine. I punched a hole in the top of my little popsicle stick tag and I added twine to it. And then I used that twine to wrap around the stem and hold that wire in place as well too. I had added hot glue as well. And I put a tag on each side of my pumpkin as well. So I just wrapped that twine around the top. And they came out cute, I think. They're not exactly like the inspiration, but I think they're cute. Once again, here's the Wayfair inspiration picture, and here's how mine came out. Let me know what you think. All right, you guys, this one was different. I saw this photograph on Canvas it was on sale for $42.99. And it just intrigued me. Now, I didn't obviously do a photograph on Canvas, but you'll just have to see what I did and see what you guys think about it. It's a little different. I'm not sure about it, but just see. I picked up this frame picture at Hobby Lobby on clearance. I think it was $1.99. And I love the frame just as it is, but I want to pop the sign out so that I can paint it easy. It took some coercion, but I got it popped out of there. And I just painted it over with some Waverly chalk paint. And I dry brushed it with some elephant chalk paint. Now I'm going to attempt to make a nest, and this was a little bit more difficult than I had imagined. You can see over on the side there, I have some moss. I started with some of the scented broom from Dollar Tree. but it doesn't bend well. I think maybe if you wet it, it will help. But anyway, I made this little platform from cork. And I started with that. And then I took the moss and I kind of just weaved it in and out of this straw. And then I just kept adding pieces of straw, more moss, more straw, more moss, until I got something kind of nest shaped. I like it. It's a little more rectangle than I wanted, but it matches my frame. Now I'm going to use these acorns from Dollar Tree, and I painted them a bright green, tried to take that back a little bit by adding some brown to the bright green, but I ended up, I think, putting green back on top of it, maybe a little less bright of a green. I just kept messing with it until I got it to the green I wanted. And I'm going to glue these down on my nest. This is just kind of a different project. I know it's inspired by that photograph, but sometimes it's kind of fun just to make something just a little different. But let me know what you guys think of this particular project. As a reminder, here is my Wayfair inspiration piece and my end project. Here are all my earlier projects as well. Let me know which one was your favorite. I hope you enjoyed these projects. I love doing this collaboration. Make sure to check out the hosts and co-hosts channels and click on that playlist to get some more budget-friendly inspiration. And as always, keep crafting.